Good morning, Dan and Amy. Well, it turns out that Jim Comey, once upon a time seen as sort of an Elliot Ness, is now sort of an Elliot mess. According to a survey done by Harvard Harris and reported exclusively to The Hill, only 17% of registered voters in America have a favorable view of Comey compared to 35% who have a negative view of him. So he's upside down 2-1. And interestingly, 41% of Democrats have an unfavorable view of Comey to 12 that view him positively. So, 3.5-1. And that's probably has a lot to do with his treatment of Hillary Clinton before the election. And he's break even with Republicans 26-27. And, it's because of being political and being seen as being political and kind of all over the map. And I made this point yesterday, in particular with his comments during his testimony before the House Intelligence Committee on Putin not liking Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, he seemed to be on her side. It was very strange.
Well, it's just, what does that have to do with anything within your purview?
And he went on to say when they realized that she was going to win, they changed their strategy almost. It was very bizarre.
He's not a cable news pundit. He's the FBI director, and he's getting out over his skis, and people are recognizing that. I made this point yesterday. Mark Stein subsequently made it with Tucker Carlson last night.
After you advised him.
Great minds think alike, but his sounds better with a British accent.
This investigation, this Fuhrer, is actually doing Putin's bidding more than having some cabinet secretary in his pocket would. So today's hearings were bizarre in a very particular way. And when someone like Comey says, Vladimir Putin absolutely hates Hillary Clinton, what business is that of a domestic law enforcement agency? Why the hell is the FBI wasting its time trying to figure out what Vladimir Putin thinks of some washed-up has-been presidential candidate?
Yeah, what he said was what I said. Now let's hear what Carl Canon has to say. Carl Canon, Washington editor for RealClearPolitics.com.
Hey.
Joins us now. Carl, thanks for being with us.
How are you, Ken?
Good. So, Jonah Goldberg has a piece in National Review today saying, essentially, that arguing that Republicans are finding it hard to play defense for Trump, that Trump has stepped on the opportunity to have Republicans focus on a crime that was committed, the only crime we know that was committed, which is the leaking of General Flynn's name, because of allegations that are not substantiated that the president has made about surveillance of Trump Tower. Is that your sense of the sense on the Hill, and they're doing the best they can at the House Intel Committee and in the caucuses generally?
Well, nobody knows quite why President Trump tweeted that about the Obama administration spying on him. It doesn't seem to have helped their cause. And the press corps in the White House has been beating up on Sean Spicer for weeks now to try to get him explained, but he doesn't know either. But look, that's not really the point here. I mean, Trump's tweets allow the Democrats, to be able to focus on other things, but I don't think the press necessarily should. This will come out or it won't come out. But the more important thing to me is what you said. Look, there's either been a crime has been committed, several crimes, classified information from wiretaps and other sources in an FBI or CIA investigation. It was leaked to the New York Times and the Washington Post repeatedly, all of them making Donald Trump look bad. Those are crimes. So we know that. Is there a larger crime committed? Did the Russian regime of Vladimir Putin try and interfere with the U.S. election? Well, that should be investigated too. But that would be maybe a worse crime, but it doesn't necessarily excuse, what the intelligence community has, how they've tried to undermine the President of the United States.
Well, what exactly then is the FBI looking for? I mean, we learned the other day at the House Intel hearing that the FBI started an inquiry, quote unquote, into Trump aides that might have links to the Kremlin last July, so long before the election. But what does that mean for Trump and his administration?
Well, I mean, the idea, was let's just speak English because the FBI doesn't, right? What they're looking at is to see whether Paul Manafort and people in Trump Tower with whom Trump was close colluded with the Russians to upend Hillary Clinton's chance in the election. Did the Trump people know about the WikiLeaks thing? Did they steer it? Did they cheer it on? Did they do these things secretly with Russian agents? That's what the FBI is looking at. They probably should look at it. There hasn't been any evidence to that fact yet. And in terms of your question, is it a distraction from the Trump presidency? I tend to look at it that way, although, let's be fair, if the Democrats, sincere Democrats, not the kind you see on TV, but if they really think this election was stolen from them, they have a right to be irritated by that and be angry about it and to want something to happen about it.
Yeah, they also have a responsibility to produce evidence. And I mean, I guess my question is, after 8 months, if how difficult is it to make a determination of that sort? It seems to me that Comey is slow walking this investigation. I don't know if it's to protect his job or what, but this seems to be going on interminably long if it started when Comey said it started. And the other thing that was underreported yesterday that we talked about earlier in the show, Elise Stefanik, who's this young congresswoman from upstate New York, had a really important exchange with Comey where she asked him what the reporting protocols are for apprising senior leadership of Congress as well as DNI of ongoing investigations. He says there are quarterly reports. But then Comey also said, and we didn't do a quarterly report to senior congressional leadership. We just briefed them on this investigation within the last month or so recently. And the explanation he had for why he didn't follow the protocols that are normally followed was because this case is so sensitive. It was a curious explanation from Comey on that topic.
Well, Dan, I couldn't agree with you more. You got two sort of important themes going there. You got a lot. You got a lot of information in a little bit there, but let's unpack it just for a second. Comey, let's start with James Comey. You know, he's been presented as this paragon of virtue. I never bought that. I don't know if you remember the case of Stephen Hatfield, who was framed for the anthrax case, and these media companies paid him huge judgments, libel judgments, and the FBI had to apologize, and all this stuff happened. Well, Comey was in the middle of that. He came in that investigation and made it worse. He embraced some junk science with dogs. He was very political in that thing and very ineffective as well. People forget that, but I haven't forgotten it. You know, James Comey's problem seems to me is he's one of these guys who thinks he's the most moral guy in the room. And that's even more insufferable than someone who thinks they're the smartest person in the room, because how can you reason with that guy? He's the only one who really cares about the country. This is kind of the vibe he gives off. And that's a kind of arrogance and hubris that's going to cause problems. But the second thing that you said, and I'll be brief here, there's been no evidence that the Russians colluded with the Trump campaign. Nothing. Zero. Nada. The Washington Post had this big page-one story and quoting the intelligence services saying the high degree of confidence, and the stuff they pointed to is like some weird email that they picked up about some Russian expressing maybe like a little bit of happiness that Hillary lost, but we're not even sure that's what he meant. His name, he isn't even named. It's a very murky accusation and a serious one, but there's been no evidence at all presented yet that it happened.
I want to get to a piece you wrote earlier in the week before we go, because it was really interesting, and it's something that people should understand. These organizations like the Southern Poverty Law Center and what they really are and what the history of them is, so that they're not given more weight than they're due. So tell us about that organization, its history, because it routinely runs around calling conservatives and conservative groups, purveyors of hate, and it turns out
racist and homophobes and sexist,
and they're not exactly playing it straight. They're not exactly kind of objective observers of the passing scene, are they?
Well, no, and you're being very kind to them. They're not at all objective, and they themselves engage in what could be called hate speech. It's certainly smearing people, and it's specialty. This Charles Murray, this AEI scholar, MIT PhD, author of really interesting books, well-researched, went up to Middlebury College. There was a riot. They won't let him talk. They shout him down. They pull fire alarms. They attack the professor who's accompanying him. They rock his car. I mean, nobody's been kicked out of school. No professor's been censured. And every one of these people, you ask them, why did you do this? Because they admitted they never even read Charles Murray's books. Oh, well, the Southern Poverty Law Center says he's racist. They say he's a eugenist. They say he's a white supremacist. This guy, his first wife was Asian. He has 2 Asian daughters he's very close to. Mm-hmm. He writes these very scholarly books. And it's libel, it's slander, it's a smear. And this is the group. But And these professors, they outsource their thinking, Dan. They don't even read this stuff themselves. College professors with tenure and PhDs won't do their own thinking. They point to this Southern Poverty Law Center, which is just a group that smears Republicans and conservatives. And the press does it too. The New York Times, the Washington Post. Oh, Southern Poverty Law Center says this guy's a racist. He's a Nazi. Well, who are they? They're just purveyors themselves. They're fear mongers is what they are, and they do this to raise money. They send out these fundraising letters. Oh, help us stop Nazism. And, some little lady, well, I'm against Nazism, and writes them a little check, and they send it, and they've amassed $300 million that they haven't spent. That's the profit. That's the extra money that they have. They're supposed to spend on litigation, but it just sits there. And they pay big salaries to the founders and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, great work detailing the Southern Poverty Law Center and who's behind it, what they do and what they don't do, because they're treated as just this, independent watchdog group. And as you properly delineate, they're nothing of the sort. So excellent work there, Carl Canon, Washington editor for RealClearPolitics.com. Always a pleasure, Carl. Thanks.
Anytime, yeah.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more